think we're all on the same level, the Unbelievers.
Yeah,
I've got the latest example was we discovered a musician called the Paranormal Song Warrior, and he has some great songs called Chupacabra and Mel's Hole and Aliens Built the Pyramids, great songs. And the day before the episode come out, we had recorded 3 days before, and we featured him heavily. We talked about him. We played 3 of his songs. The day before it's about to come out, someone sends us, "Hey, check this guy out. He's got a bunch of paranormal songs." This guy posted these songs in 2011 or 2012. I had never discovered him the whole time. And as soon as I did, and now other people immediately are telling me about it. Then we call the guy. We talked to the guy himself, and we realized he also wrote a song under a different name that we used maybe 20 episodes before, that he was also a different artist. He is the man who says your name over and over.
That one was nuts. I was listening still. I was on the call still because you guys hadn't hung up on me yet. But I was blown away. I was like, I was on mute, so of course I'm not gonna jump in. But I literally was like, oh my God, I cannot believe that's the same person. Like, it makes sense, but what are the freaking odds? Like, how does that work out? About the Jeff the Mongoose thing, Russ, remember how you just happened to be flipping through your book? You didn't really Google that.
Yeah, when we started the podcast last November. We took a break over the holidays, and over the holidays I started reading some books, and I started reading about Jeff the Mongoose. It was a cryptid I had never heard of. A really fascinating story. They never knew if it was a poltergeist or an actual creature, but it was really funny, and he cussed a lot, and he was ribald. He was a rowdy rodent. It was a great episode, but immediately after I do it, I've listened Coast to Coast AM the same night, like 10 minutes before our show comes on. They start interviewing a guy about a book about Jeff the Mongoose. Like, immediately as our episode came out, it made no sense. It was like, wow, and I listened to all this stuff, never heard of this ever, and all of a sudden it's out everywhere. And we end up actually getting lucky enough to interview that guy ourselves.
Oh yeah, we swooped right in, just like, all right, fine, George Noory, you're gonna interview this guy, we're gonna interview him too. We had to.
Yeah, and I made George Noory plug our show on Coast to Coast AM. So
you did. That was a bold move.
Well played.
That's kind of a legendary moment. That's a legendary moment for the Unbelievers podcast right there, to be honest.
Yeah,
props
awesome.
for that.
Props for that. We got it.
So it sounds like you guys have a well-functioning, smooth, seamless, everything goes fabulous sort of podcast.
No, it was bumpy.
Rob works a lot of magic, yeah.
We've been figuring this out together as a team since we started this show, and it's every week it gets a little bit like, riding a bicycle. You get a little bit better at it every time you do it, and then
it took
after
me
a while,
a year to learn to ride a bicycle.
Yeah, I mean, the training wheels. Some people need the training wheels for a little while. It's all right, but I think we've gotten we enjoy doing it so much. We all look forward to getting together every week and and just laughing. We spend probably a good half hour of the show laughing, because we make each other laugh at these clips sometimes, and it's fun. We have a great time doing it. So I think that's a key thing to having a good show and to try to put together a good show, is just to have fun doing it.
Amelia, I'm really jealous of you, because when I listen to those, no offense, Beth, but when Amelia has to do episodes herself, I'm like, how the heck, I could never pull that off. I don't know how you do it. Like, you did an entire episode where you just hosted it. I was like, I'm about to say, hey, sorry, forget these losers. I could do this.
You could.
I know that everybody tunes in to listen to Amelia. It's all right.
Brian Frangie was never afraid to do that. He would get on there and do a full episode with clips and stuff by himself.
Yeah. Well, he was really good at it.
He was a freak of nature.
Not to quote a sound clip.
He was a freak of nature, but he was like the originator of this, of what we do. We got to give Brian props.
We didn't even say his name.
We loved his style of the show that he put together with the Unbelievable Podcast, and it's fun. I think every week we were all tuned in, listening to the show live and talking on the chat. Pretty much, we were kind of doing the podcast before we were doing the podcast, while we were listening to the Unbelievable Podcast, just by communicating in the chat with each other, and so it feels like second nature when we record these episodes.
I think one of the most incredible things about your show is that you guys always sound like you were in the same room together looking at each other, when in fact you were all over the country.
I've never seen either of these people in my life.
Yeah,
we've never met in person ever.
We've never met in person.
We
Stop
have
it.
We have a
Really?
weird show. Like most podcast people have met each other. We've never met each other, none of us.
Well, Drea lives in California. I'm in Louisiana, and Rob is on Long Island. You could not get further away from each other if we wanted. Like, if we had to split the country in three to not be close to each other, we did a pretty great job.
Yeah, no, we form a triangle. We form a giant triangle across the United States, and we call it the Unbelievers Triangle. And
everybody gets sucked into it.
Everybody is included in that. It's pretty much the entire United States.
Oh, that's awesome.
Kind of a challenge, but we managed to pull it together with the developing the chemistry too. Because I remember talking with you guys in the chat here and there, and then being in the same Facebook group and everything. But until we did the actual podcast, we only had like a phone call all together to just kind of I was like, I gotta feel these people out.
To be fair, I knew Jude in real life. We have met. We had been friends for a couple of years, so it kind of started our friendship. Now, unfortunately, now Jude is very he's still part of the show in a big way, but it's just he's going through he's getting married and he's got so much stuff going on, moving.
Oh, good for him. That's
so
awesome.
It's really hard to get him. So it's become like the three of us kind of have to anchor it every week.
Do a good job as anchors.
Yeah, doing great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, but we really want to hear your spooky stories. So let's get into that. Who wants to go first?
All right. We each got a spooky story. All right. Who wants? Can I go first?
You sure can.
Yeah.
Go for us.
Okay. So I'm going to paint a picture a little bit. So this happened. I had experience. This was in New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans originally, and if anyone's been to New Orleans, if you know the area where all the cemeteries are close to City Park, if you go down Canal Street and you end up, and it's all the giant cemeteries you imagine, because all the cemeteries have to be raised because they're below sea level, and you can't have bodies floating down the street. And I lived in a house. Now, I was in a band at the time. And I had a singer who lived literally across the street from the gates of a cemetery. Like, the cemetery's on Canal Street, and behind the cemetery was this house on a street, and looking out to it. So it's already, that's just setting the vibe right there. So I moved in this house. It's a shotgun New Orleans style house. It means a house split in half, where people live on each side, and it's a 2-story house. So he gives me a room upstairs, and I move in. And he had recently broken up, so he had extra room. He wanted a roommate. He closes. I move in all my stuff. Everything seems fine. But he was really into like mortician stuff and just really dark stuff. So the house is already filled with skeletons and crosses and candles. And it looks like a funeral home. Like, he had red plush couches that looked like belonged in a funeral home. Like, he was obsessed with funeral home. He owned a hearse. The hearse was in the driveway. And we lived across from a cemetery. It was like yes, this was.
He was all in.
Completely.
Sounds like a real goth.
Absolutely, but more a rowdy guy who was just really loved that stuff. So really rowdy. So a lot of the time I lived there, he was gone. He was just out there doing stuff. He worked in the French Quarter. I mean, you could literally ride your bike to the French Quarter from there in about 15 minutes. That's kind of where we all lived. And I noticed after I moved in, maybe it had been about a week, I noticed I closed the door to the outside, and I see nothing but looks like knife stabs into the door. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, what is this? And he's like, I don't know. When we moved in, that was in here. And it almost looked like the Shining, like a weak guy, though. He couldn't get in and stab the door. Okay, so I'm just this is what the house looked like. So I had an experience one night when I'm going to sleep, and I have my arms laid back on the bed, as if I'm just laid out and my arms are above me, splayed out. And I wake up to the sensation of, I don't know why I'm reenacting in here. You guys aren't watching it.
No, I can see it.
It helps you tell the story better.
It does. So I've got my arms, if I was standing, it would look like they're raised, but I'm laid on the bed. And I can feel my hands together, and I'm starting to feel what feels like fabric or like a soft leather. I don't know, but I feel something starting to hold my hands together, and I'm kind of half asleep, half waking up. And I wake up because I feel it start to get tight. So it's almost like being held by my hands. And I never really had it. I really scared of ghosts as a kid, but I had never had any experience like this. And I wake up and I see above me, it looks like almost like this thin black mist floating around. It's making this weird moaning sound. It's going like, oh, so. It's almost like it's trying to say something. It's really, really hazy. Like, it was really hard to make out. It's like my eyes wanted to make one, but it wasn't there. But all of a sudden, like, a part of it went out, looked like an arm pointing to the closet in the room, and I heard two words. It just said, the book. And then it went away, and my hands were free, and I was completely freaked out. And then I go outside, run outside, and I realize I got a cemetery. I was like, I feel like I'm in a horror movie at that point. Like,
sounds like it for
really,
sure.
really
it said
terrifying.
the book. It said the book.
Yeah,
what did it sound like? What was the voice that said the book?
It just sounded like a. It sounds like the experiences that people say of the old hag syndrome. It sounded exactly.
It was a
and I was at
voice.
that.
An old hag said that?
Only time I had never heard of that happening before until I started really getting into studying these kind of things. And yeah, when I found out about the old hag syndrome, that's a lot like what happened to me. And it always seems like it happened to young men. I was a very young man. And I was in my prime back then, baby. But
Did you get the book?
we ended up looking, because I hadn't lived here very long. I hadn't barely even moved in. This is just his spare room. He had lived there for a while. And above, but I was freaked out. And he did show me, and there was a ton of books at the top of that closet. And like, it had really tall ceilings. So a closet went up multiple levels. And like the middle level you opened up, and there was all these old mortuary textbooks and doctor's manuals and things like that. And I was like, I don't have time for a ghost mystery. I was a busy guy at the time. I didn't even end up living there that long. So if they wanted me to solve a mystery, it wasn't happening. But
She should have been more descriptive. She could have. There was a lot of books. She could have said
There was.
She should have said the name of the book.
A book.
Yeah.
A book.
That was it.
That was unresolved for that ghost.
Oh, completely. And that was it. I had get an old hag experience. And I will say generally that this happened. I have a very clear memory of this. This was not, I don't know what you want to say, if it was some kind of sleep paralysis or, it's possible.
No, that sounds different from sleep paralysis. That's a common thing that people end up saying, like, were you drinking? Were you smoking? It's like, I don't care what you say. I've never felt any of that kind of stuff if I am drinking or smoking. So it's like, blame it on sleep paralysis.
Good point.
I've had sleep paralysis a ton of times. But every now and then there's something that's just like, nah, this was different,
That's a really good point, Trey. I like that, because if that was really the way it worked, then every single person out there who smoked a joint would be seeing ghosts every night. And you know what I mean? And every person who went out and had a couple beers, they'd be seeing ghosts all over the place. So that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening, okay?
Yeah,
that needs to
exactly.
They need to stop throwing that one out there.
Appreciated. But yeah, that's pretty scary, dude.
All right, yeah, and I ended up moving out of there pretty shortly after, so I wasn't there very long. But yeah, it was a pretty spooky experience I had.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds
mine's
crazy.
Really quick. Like I don't have a ton of ghost stories, to be honest. Like I went on a cool ghost hunt with William Fox. Probably like almost like
Will Fox from the Long Island Paranormal Investigators?
Exactly.
Oh, we know him.
Very cool.
This wasn't a year ago, Rob. This was like 3
less than a year ago.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. It was like 6 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, 5 months ago. I don't know how time works at all.
See how small our little podcast world is. You're like, William Fox, our guest from Long Island Paranormal. Yes, of course. And hey, we all said on our show too. Congratulations to Will Fox, who's engaged.
Yeah,
that's right. Yes, congratulations again.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He invited me on a hunt and pretty much made sure that I had a good investigation. He was my personal guide there. There was a few other people in our group, but he made sure that I got the full experience, and it was very cool. It was I didn't see any ghosts that night. I thought I saw a shadow person in a room across the hallway, but it's kind of hard to tell because, the thing about shadow people is they look a lot like shadows. It's really tough to tell if you're just seeing a shadow or a shadow person.
They're not there too long. You got to be quick.
Yeah, and then
it's like a rock.
That was really cool. Great experience. And I have a friend who works at a very famous place in the city that does haunting stuff. So I'm hoping to go on another investigation soon with him. and hopefully I'll have some cool stories for you guys then. But besides that, there was one other time when I was walking. I got dropped off at my house, my old house, probably about like 8 years ago where I was living, and it was late night. I had been out partying all night, so I had a couple beers. I was probably feeling pretty good, and I was walking.
Right, this story's over. It's
taxi dropped me. No. Listen, this is weird. So taxi dropped me off. I was walking back to my house, and I got about halfway, started walking back up to my driveway, and out of nowhere, this loud screech that sounded like a Native American like battle cry just from behind me, extremely loud, made me jump, and I just ran for my life to my house, and I never knew what it was. It just it was something that stuck with me. I feel like the area where I live, there was a lot of Native American history.